Hello, I'm Bryce Olinsky, and today I'm with Tom Ferguson. And Tom, we've actually went through a really exciting integration architecture course, and I wanted to share some thoughts with our viewers around that course and what you got out of it and enjoyed it and what advice you might have for other people going into it. And what's really cool, Tom, about getting into the call, and maybe I'll just start with some people to get you to introduce yourself. But you're no stranger to integration architecture. I mean, you've been in it since your IBM days, and then you came on board, and then you came on board to the course. So why did you take the course with your extensive background? And maybe give us a little bit of that background.
Right. Okay. Well, initial reason for taking the course is we identified a few different projects at the company that I was working with at that time. And more than one of them would require, in my opinion, an integration solution. It's one of those where maybe the project could have been implemented and delivered without integration, but you reach a certain stage, I think, in a company's maturity or as the company grows, where you start to need integration because it's just too big, too complicated. So what we try to do then is make a decision, and it's somewhat a business decision as well, whether it's the right time to introduce an integration solution and what type of solution should it be, all of those kind of questions. So I've been through this before, going back maybe 25 years or so now, where I've done various integration projects. And they weren't necessarily integration projects. They were a digital transformation project of some type, implementing whatever, SAP or ERP systems, e-commerce portals, but they required to integrate with various back-end systems where the data resided, a data warehouse or whatever it might be. So been doing that for about 25 years, but off and on. So I thought for myself, it would just be a refresher, get me more up to speed on current integration architecture. And for my team that would be involved in the projects, it was timing wise that this was the right time to get them some training.
Excellent. So when you came into the course itself is fairly broad in its coverage, in that it covers a lot of the modern techniques around microservices and APIs, right down to some of the messaging fundamentals. What did you find most useful about the course?
Well, I think that most useful, there was just a ton of information. And I mean that in a good way, Bryce. It was information overload every session. And so, and you had to keep up quite a fast pace. So there was no time for sleeping or anything. You had to be awake and tuned in the whole time. Definitely, I recommend it to my team and myself even, between sessions, training sessions, go back and review it again. Because when you go through material that fast and so much heavy concepts and theory and everything behind it, you need to go over it more than once for things to sink in. So there's a ton of really excellent material, content involved. I think for myself, hard to say which part I found the most interesting, but I think one thing I always look for in architecture are design patterns. So there were several really good design patterns that you covered that were excellent. I think the other part that I found really good, really relevant was some of the classroom kind of workshops that we did. Remember some of the, and
yes,
some of our stuff that we were actively working on, and then we worked on it in a class. So rather than just a lot of theory and a lot of heavy concepts, which, as you know, integration is pretty deep stuff.
it is.
It made it more real world, more practical when you can see this being done, in a project or however it was being implemented. So made it more practical, I think.
That's excellent. So one of the things I think that differentiates the course, and I want to get your thought on this, is it's not a vendor course on how to use tooling. It's very different. It's going from like the business intention of what you need to achieve and how do I apply the architecture? And one of the things that I really enjoy about it is, like you're saying, you're bringing these workshop elements in and going end to end. How did you find it? Did it achieve that goal though of being like of really getting from the business intent down to the architecture? And what did you walk away with in addition to just some of the pattern stuff? Was there other stuff that came out of that?
Definitely. It was very vendor neutral. Like you're saying, you weren't there, representing some EAI vendor or SOA vendor. There's a lot of different products on the market, various vendors, Tibco, Web Methods, IBM, of course, Oracle. Yeah. I mean, they've all got their suite of various integration products. So it was very kind of vendor neutral. But you started very at a conceptual level, and then kind of worked it into some practical examples. You gave a few different use cases. I remember talking about Palantir and some of the other examples that made it more real for people. I think that the kind of broad approach that you took it almost like let's start with the methodology. Let's start with the framework. And then like business context modeling and delivering the requirements. I think so many projects, and you've no doubt been on some, that went wrong and that failed even, disastrous, really difficult projects. Even things like the requirements and the non-functional requirements were never clearly defined. And right from the get-go, they didn't follow a methodology. They didn't, adopt a framework. And then they tried to get pushed into delivering when those things hadn't been even clearly defined up front.
So, Tom, who would you recommend takes this course from your experience? Who would value the most from it?
I think there's a number of different people. Even business architects, because we need them involved in every project. Like I'm saying, really get the business perspective to begin with. What are the business challenges that we're trying to solve, right? If you don't have those, and then you go straight into low-level technical design, you're going to be in trouble. So I would recommend a solution architect, right? Not necessarily people like me that are EAs, right? Because I'm the level just above solution architecture. As an EA, I want to be involved because I want to ensure whatever solutions a solution architect put together aligns with my overall EA vision for the future company, right? The future architecture. So as an EA, I'm a stakeholder. I want to be involved in making sure that solutions are the right type of solution for our company, right-sized and all of that. And also even making sure that they meet the requirements that I spoke of. So a solution architect, definitely. Technical architect, because once you get to the next level, I would usually see it going into being a solution architect, handing it to a technical architect who designs more of the detail level, right? So high level, and then finally getting to a low level design. So eventually too, you're going to have to be dealing with the people that will be supporting it and implementing it. So they need to understand it too, because they're going to be the ones day-to-day job, right? Operationally supporting all of this. So they should be involved too. If you can identify who some of those people will be, get them in the training too. So they know right from the beginning, the architecture at that point maybe not been defined yet. But if you have a real project going on already, like I did at the time when we took this training with you, we had 2 or 3 different projects going on. We also had a data architecture project kicking off. So I had my data architect also on the project. So you see what I mean? You got a technology architect, you got solution architect, you got every different, and then even your operational architects that are more like a DBA or whoever it might be that you're going to identify as who will be supporting all of this.
That makes sense. And I would say from my point of view, one of the areas where I felt I added the most value, in the class was actually working through some of the examples from different perspectives. And, of course they were, anonymized, so nothing confidential was discussed, but we were able to go through some of the trade-offs. We were able to go from what's the outcome I want to how do I do it. Having said all that, my final question is, what would your advice be for somebody to get the most benefit out of the course if somebody's taking it?
I would say always take training that's immediately going to be applied to whatever you're doing at the time. So if you've got a project kicking off, or even if you're in the middle of a project, not too late, take the integration training then. So it's always great, in my opinion, to take training that I immediately know tomorrow when I go back to the office, I'm going to be using this. And so the timing is always essential. So that's when I've got the biggest, what do we say, bang for the buck, is when I take training that I can immediately use in my day job.
That's awesome. Is there any other final comments? Is there anything I should have asked you that I didn't ask you, Tom, that you wanted to share about the course or anything, going forward, its application?
Well, one of the other valuable things that came out of it was how flexible you were.
Thank you.
Yeah, I remember we came to you, in particular, me and my team, but there were a lot of other people involved in the training in Europe and spread around the world, other than my team. But I did come to you asking, hey, Bryce, can you maybe add a bit of this in, or maybe we could make a presentation to you one day on some integration challenging we're facing right now. And then we participated as a class in solving that problem and coming up with solutions to it. So making it really practical again for everybody, and being flexible about even people, from the class actually offering some things that we could work on together. That was really valuable.
Tom, thank you. That's great feedback. I really appreciate that. I really appreciate the time we spent. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you bet. It was a great course, and I'm sure everybody learned a ton. There were a few other people on the training that I'd requested to take the training that weren't even part of the architecture team. Like I said, they were part of more on the operations side of the house, but I think they learned a lot from it too.
Awesome. Thanks, Tom.
Yeah, you're welcome, Bryce.